One. All right. Welcome, Culture Power listeners. I am so happy to be back. This is your host, Stacey Grant Lewis. We've been away for some time with this podcast, but we're back in 2023. And what a way to come back than to meet somebody that I've been stalking on the internet for a number of years. We just laughed about it. It's been a long time, like over 7 years, and I've been following Grace Chang. Some of you might know her sister, who I interviewed in October of last year. But Grace is a creative. She is a lifestyle photographer. She is a mom, a wife, a sister, and we're going to get to know each other a little bit better in this format. So I won't talk anymore. Grace, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So tell the listeners a little bit about, who you are. Like, I say lifestyle photographer and creative, but what does that really mean?
So I kind of like stumbled to here and I feel like I'm, what is it like? Jack of all trade, master of none. I always have stayed in the creative field. I was born in Korea.
Right.
I call myself 1.5 generation because I came when I was 13. So
Okay.
I speak the language. I went to junior high when I immigrated to Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Okay.
And then I went to school, University of Michigan, and graduated, and then been in New York ever since. Uh,
Oh.
yeah, and then I think in terms of my work, I've dabbed in a lot of different things, but mostly in creative. So I say I always did creative, just changed the medium. So I
Mm.
started with the print design. I used to design movie posters. That was my first job out of college, and then I taught myself web design, and I started a company with four others, and launched it was even before MySpace or Facebook. It was a social networking communities.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it was called Asian Avenue for Asian Americans, Black Planet for Black.
I remember Black Planet.
Do you remember? Yeah, that was old school.
Old school.
Yes, one of the originals, and then Mi Gente was for Latinos.
Okay.
Um, so I did the web design, started a company, left, and then I did some soul searching, and I went into fashion actually. So I did a fashion design. I worked for Philip Lim,
Oh,
and then
cool.
yeah, and then I launched a my own line called Grey Sun. It was women's contemporary. I sold to Barney's and Neiman Marcus and did that for I don't know 6 years. Um, and then I launched it on other companies. So I'm like very serial entrepreneur.
Entrepreneur. Yeah.
So and then I launched a this company called Ivory Row. I designed cashmere. It was direct to consumer cashmere line. So I
Okay. Okay.
designed, I produced, and I sold it online. I was doing everything, like sewing button, designing, fitting, shipping.
Wow.
um, so yeah. So and then I discovered photography, and I really love it. And I discover also traveling.
Yeah.
Um, so then that's what I do now. I love taking photos, discovering new places.
Yeah. So if somebody were to go onto your social, I mean, these photos, guys, check her out. Mama's Hot is as an haute couture though. Mama's
Yeah,
Haute.
not my food.
Yes. On Instagram, it's just like these beautiful, fantastic locations. Like, how did you, because it looks like you have been doing travel photography for some time. And right now it's really hot. I see a lot of young people trying to, market themselves as these like lifestyle photographers when they're really just not. But how did you decide on marrying this love of yours, the photography, with travel? Is that you just decided to combine them?
Yes, I mean, I picked up a really good camera. I remember, like, I don't know now, it's like 15 years ago. and I think I always been in creative, and I was always creative director. So I had always like visioned how the shots will be,
Hmm.
and I think it kind of forced me to take my own photos when started my own cashmere line, and like we're running out of budget. So at
Yeah,
the beginning, we used to do these shoots, and I would like come up with a concept, but there was like makeup, hair, model, photographer, all this, and then we'll like shoot at this location, which cost thousands of dollars. And
right.
the internet has changed. Um, and then as digital photography had developed more, I was able to kind of get by the photographer and just do it myself.
Oh, okay.
Um, so that I think that's the kind of how it started, because I know in my head like the shot that I want. And so instead of communicating that to somebody else to get it, I was able to just shoot it myself.
Cool, because some of these are stunning. You know, that's another thing. I think people might look at your feed and look at your portfolio and even think, wow, that is a glamorous life. Like Grace is all over the world. First of
Right.
all, where are you based out of?
I'm based in New York. So I think that the reason that I have a very flexible schedule is obviously because I'm a photographer, and but I'm also a divorced mom, but
Yeah.
remarried. So when you get divorced, and the arrangement I had my son only for 50% of time.
Okay.
So, and newly divorced, I mean, I was always involved mom. So I spent pretty much like, 99% of my time with my son. And when that freed up, in the beginning, it was really difficult to kind of feel that time. So
Yeah.
I start traveling, and I start kind of figuring out, hey, what did you used to love to do that you can do? Because uh like I didn't have my son to take care for 50% of time. So it
Right.
just kind of freed up the time to travel and explore the world more.
Yeah.
And I think that's how it got started.
Yeah, I'm in a family too of we have my kids half the time. So it
Right,
is like, you do have that other half of okay, the kids are not home with you. You
right,
have some time to do something else. So you're
right.
based out of New York.
Yes.
You have remarried, you have a son. I think he's a teenager, yes?
Yeah, we're a very international family.
Yeah.
So I was married to Chinese American. I'm
Yeah.
Korean American, married to Chinese American, divorced. So my child is half Chinese and half Korean, but he's American, obviously. He was born
Yeah.
here. And then I'm remarried a Spaniard. So
Okay.
he's from Madrid, but he lives in France. It's like,
Okay,
oh,
following along.
yes. So, but we did meet in New York.
Okay.
We met in New York. He's in kind of a baking business, so he was opening up a bakery. Um, and then we kept on dating after he left long distance for 2 years, or maybe
Yeah.
3 years when he proposed. And we've been married now for 4 years, but we still live in a different country. So
Oh, very cosmopolitan, new modern marriage.
yeah, so we're here in New York a lot. 50% of time, I mean, I would say 30% of time we're in New York together, 30% of time we're in France or Spain together, and then rest of the time we're somewhere in the world together. So it's been a lot of traveling.
Wow, that is unconventional, but very cool. I mean, you're making that happen. It must be a lot of miles
A
on
lot of
on your
a lot of miles. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think I'm pretty much away like 50% of the time from New York. So
yeah. Yeah, well, I think that can be good too, Grace. I think that having those different, vistas, perspectives can be good for the brain, to just kind of see the world differently.
yeah, 100%. I mean, I said like I have a conventional marriage, but it works for me. I'm super happy. And
Yeah.
I think it works because it's the stage of my life. I can't imagine having a child with somebody who's never around, but
Yeah.
my child is like 15. So,
Right.
you know, and they actually get along really well too. So I just got super lucky to have sort of like this kind of like I'm married, but I say like more like single bachelor life, like you get to travel and do things that you want to do with
Yeah,
friends. But then I
yeah.
also have this family life that is very rooted and grounded.
Right. Well, it sounds like you kind of, and I'm putting words in your mouth. You can correct me whenever you think I'm wrong, but you've at this stage in your life found what works for you.
Right,
Right. And I think it's important to talk about these things because we get very set in what should be, especially in America, I've noticed. And,
right,
I consider myself moderately traveled. It's not the same everywhere. Just like this is what you, by this stage, you should be this and you should have this and this age and whatever. And I think at least for me at 40, you figure out like, and I'm not 40 anymore, Grace. It's been you figure out like, okay, listen, you only get this one shot at this thing called life. You got to kind of figure out what works for you to make you ultimately happy. So let's
right.
talk about a little bit about your multicultural, because it sounds like you're married to a Chinese person, you're Korean, married to a Spaniard now. You're a citizen of the world, like a global citizen, because you're
Right,
traveling quite a bit.
right.
How has that impacted you personally, your travels outside of work?
I think, this mind was cultivated when I was really young because before even I got to college, my family moved 16 times in home wise.
Whoa.
So I went to three different elementary school, two different junior high, one high school and one college.
Wow.
But we moved a lot, and I think I had a choice to um, just blend in and just keep it going. So you can actually put me in any room. If I am in the mood, I can literally talk to anybody. And I'm actually known to like be super social. I like, I'll talk to anyone. Um, so I think like culturally, there's less boundaries and lines that
Yeah.
I try to draw. But I think that's just the cultural. But I think there's also the American culture. There is this really the people line that people draw themselves when it comes to status and a class as well.
Yeah.
Um, and so I know a ton, I travel a lot, but I do high and low. So I met this surfer who is like, that his life is very different than like New York life. I mean, New York is, like the
Its
most
own
expensive
animal.
anything,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So no one can really compete with this kind of life. So, but then we travel together, and how he travels and how I travel was very different. And then we kind of figure a way to do it seamlessly.
Yeah. Who has the most suitcases when you travel? You?
Pardon?
Who has the most suitcases when you travel?
Uh,
You?
we only travel with one carry-on,
Each of you.
each of us.
Nice.
I have a very strict policy when it comes to that. I mean, even I got married in France, and I was there for 2 weeks, and I had carry-on, including my wedding dress.
Nice.
Yeah, well, I mean, because like you fly a lot, and you never, you try to condense travel time, right? So you don't check
Right.
in luggages, and when the things could go wrong a lot. And then I guess as the more I travel, I just became really good at just what to pack. Uh,
Yeah.
and so yeah, we only do a carry-on. Um, Only time we carry a lot of stuff is if we go to surfing destination and we're bringing our boards. And
Okay. And your wetsuit.
yeah, well, like we're hoping that we don't bring wetsuit, but it's like the boards that you have to bring, and those are like ginormous. So
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
only
Well, I aspire to be you. I'm trying. I'm trying to be the person who's very gangster about like, I don't need this, I don't need this, and I can always buy this. Trying. It's hard, but I'm trying. So,
time.
what's the biggest misconception about what you do and what you're about?
I think it's what you're saying. Like, I think that people have a very a way of kind of projecting their life and their concept or their notions. And I think that, like, Instagram is one of those things that it's just like a resume of what you want to show to the world.
Right.
And as you mentioned, my photographs are pretty like dreamy, I have to say. And
Yeah.
that's what I like because I'm very visually like that's what I like to portray this kind of inspirational life.
Yeah.
Um, or the world because I really want everybody to travel.
Yeah.
So I think the misconception is that it's like it's it just seems like I have a limitless time and money to do this kind of travel, and it's very easy, everything is easy, but life is not easy. I mean, obviously everybody has their battles.
Right, right. And there are things to deal with. And I think what you've done well and I'm big upping you right now, is that you've already made some decisions in the background that allow you to do what you want to do or what you need to
Right.
do for yourself. And
Yeah,
that's what people sometimes don't focus on. They're more caught up in the glossy outward pictures instead of doing that background work. You know what I mean?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, I mean, I have so many people like, oh, I want to live, I live through your Instagram, I want to live your life, and 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 all these people like they actually have more means than I do, right? Like, and I want to just tell them like, if you don't buy the bag,
Yes.
oh, you can go to like this place for 3, 4 days, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's like it's kind of a I think over the years I started buying less, and I really try to spend that means to travel and
Right.
then get more experience. Like I rather like I don't know, like go on like a horseback riding, or take a helicopter ride than buying a expensive bag. And
Right.
obviously like there are people who are doing both and all this stuff, but I think like material things don't it's very like instant gratification, you
And then
know?
it wanes, right? Like right after you get it, it's like, okay, now I have this thing.
Yeah. I mean,
So like,
it's a lot harder said than done though. Like you live in New York and I was like in fashion.
yep.
So like things you need, things, like when I'm in New York, I'm going out and all those things, and you do get caught off because you're like, hey, you know what? Oh, I want this,
Right. You see,
Um,
but that's what you're saying. Things you need versus the things you want. I think what New York is very good at is convincing you that those things are the same and they're not. So once you leave there, you're like, wait a minute, I don't necessarily need any of that.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I think so. And I think that less time I spend in New York, I need less of those things,
Yeah,
Like I was in California for 9 months and I literally lived out of the sweatpants during,
that's
COVID
awesome.
time. So you don't really need it. But the minute you come back to New York, I mean, you go into dinner with friends, you want to like, start looking certain way. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. I get
so
it. As
yeah.
a recovering New Yorker, I get it. I say recovering because I lived there for 15 years before I moved here to Massachusetts. I love that city, but I think with any big city, you can get caught up in the material status, whatever, because that's part of the currency of being in a place like that. It's filled with go-getters who are working very hard and, to acquire certain things.
Right.
So
It's very aggressive city.
yeah, yeah, but in a good way too sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, let's talk about your heritage. So you're Korean. What has it been like for you? Because I also got to the States when I was 10, and I think it's different than coming here when you're like 5. You're already kind of like understand the world a bit when you're in the double digits. What was it like for you to come to the States as a Korean person?
In a hindsight, it's like it's kind of crazy what I went through
Yeah.
because my son is 15, and I just imagine. I mean, and he's also like in a language program, right? He speaks Chinese, but I can't imagine if he was like dropped in the middle of China when he was 13, and then he just has to go to like regular school. It's like, and then you survive, and like it's just mind-boggling for me how I even like adjusted and like went to college, right?
Right. Not
When
just college, but University of Michigan.
yeah, University of Michigan, like basically like well, you're 13, you start applying again when you're 17 in 4 years, right? In 4 years, I was able to learn the language and get good grades enough to get into a university. It's
Yeah.
like for me, it's like it's kind of mind-boggling. But universities are a lot harder to get into these days than
Yeah.
when we were. Um, but I think that experience was super extreme because I remember like very clearly certain trauma stories, of
Yeah.
adjusting and all this. But um, I think it's also like kind of makes you great, you
Yeah,
know?
I agree.
like makes you like survive any kind of conditions, you know. So I think that's why I'm like such a great traveler because I'm like, all right, you know, like we'll deal with it.
I've been through worse. Do you ever find yourself referring back to that moment in moments of discomfort? Like, well, I've already done this, so I can do this too. Right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I kind of, yeah, yes. I think that, you know, those are the really tough moments, you know. And I think, you know, as you age, you have more battle scars to go by. And I think that you don't really get discouraged or scared that much anymore, like, because you just kind of live through it, you know?
Yeah. I gotta say, the going blind and whatever it's with aging. My favorite part is that you get to be tough if you're doing it right. Like things slide off your back a little bit more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do, yeah. I'm turning actually 50 next month.
Yeah. And I can't wait. Well, I shouldn't even say this because this is like counterproductive to what we're talking about. It's not about what you look like, but you look like a vibrant, vivacious person who's not like moaning about turning 50. Do you feel like you're going to be very upset by that when it happens?
I don't think so, but I do think it's a significant birthday because I remember like thinking when you're in 20s, like, oh my God, 50 seems so old. But then I feel like I don't feel like I don't know. It's like what you're saying, counterproductive. Like, I don't feel like I'm 50 old. Like, I don't have the mindset or, I guess, outlook on life that way. Though I'm very grateful, like, for all the things I have gone through or have in my 50. It's gonna be like in next 2 weeks, so I'm still 49. So, but I don't know. I mean, I just read this book called Ikagai. It means a reason for living. And they basically study all the centenarian in Okinawa in Japan because they have the most oldest people. So they
Okay.
have the longest life. And they kind of study them. And they're like formula for, long life. And one was to never stop moving, so you're like, they don't actually encourage people to retire. They're always like walking, moving, like they're always doing things, not
I'm down with that.
necessarily working, but like they're always like moving. Even in the later days, they don't encourage like, sitting around their house. Two was food, obviously diet. So they said to eat 80%. So whatever you eat, 80%, and obviously like a lot of vegetable, fish, and like, you know,
Mhm.
um, colorful stuff that Okinawans do. And the third was very interesting is though they really believe in the community
Okay.
and the social aspect of it. So they say that that is very key to long life. So I
Like
think,
finding purpose in your community kind of thing.
yeah, it's like just no, it's just being social, like just like you belong somewhere.
Okay. Okay.
You have friends and family that you actually have just a lot of fun with and laugh with, and
Yeah.
that is just very important for your long life. And
Yeah.
I always kind of believe all those things, and I think, um, in a way, like I mean, I guess I could be doing more of that stuff, but I think I am that. Like I love to learn new things.
Yeah.
Uh, I picked up, so me and my sisters, we all picked up surfing when we were in 40s. So we like the challenge, but it's not like, like very stressful challenge. Um, I'm always moving. They say, like I'm just busy all the time. My husband's always like, can you just do one less thing? Just one less thing. Like you just jam pack it in. So I like to like just really live to the fullest. I have friends and family, but more friends. Like I have friends that are like 20 plus years.
Yeah.
Uh, and I find it very like important to still keep on traveling with them, having fun, like just
Yeah.
keep it going because relationship don't grow unless you're like, giving each other time.
Right.
You
Right.
know, and as
Gotta
you get,
water the garden, man. You gotta water the
yeah,
garden. Yeah.
and if we get like married and have kids, and it's just like less and less time that
Yeah.
you spend with each other. So I think it's just you just have to keep it watering, as you're saying. Um, Yeah. I mean, I think that, obviously, like, I'm very grateful the cards I'm dealt, right? Because
Yeah.
there's obviously the luck or faith or the that is like dealt to me. So I'm grateful. I'm
Right.
aware. Um, but yeah, I think like that's kind of my outlook on life and culturally too. Like I just like never really um I'm actually super interested in like any kind of culture.
Yeah.
Um, so often have this argument, me and my husband, because he really loves to go like the surfing destination.
Mhm.
Like he doesn't like he travel like is really like focused on like all this surfing and waves that he really wants to ride. For me, it's like, yes, that's important, but like I'm a surfer, but like not die hard. That's the only thing I want to do. I really enjoy that it comes with it, the whole lifestyle. So I
Yeah.
love like places like Bali or Sri Lanka, um, because it has a surfing, but it has all this other culture that I can go explore as well.
Yeah.
So when we travel together, I always try to pick those places like
Yeah.
Philippines, Africa. We're actually going to Senegal in February. 'Cause-
Nice.
yeah, because I mean, my Africa, it's I've only been to like Morocco and like South Africa, so I need to start conquering some lands there.
Yeah. So you're gonna
Um,
it's gonna take you some time. It's a big place.
I know it really is.
So tell me about so your heritage again. I wanted to get back to that a little bit. Like, what are you, do you find, I find myself getting more Jamaican as I age. I feel like a little bit like I over assimilated when I got to the States because I wanted to fit in so much.
Yeah.
I took on too much Americanism, and now I find myself going in reverse, trying to find my Jamaicanism. Have you had a similar experience, or is there anything about your Korean culture that you're like, wow, I really want to dive into that now?
Yes, 100%. It's
Yeah.
the same way. And I was very forced to like simulate, go simulate. And then I don't even know why, but like over the years, like I lost all my Korean friends. And even all my Asian friends are like Chinese or Vietnamese or like it's like, they're American, right? So I really miss the language.
Yeah.
Like I started actually watching K-dramas again, and it was actually great because my older sister's daughter, who is born and raised here, she's half Vietnamese, half Korean. She watches K-drama, so it just gave us like a little like a bonding moment because we can talk about it. But I watch it and like the storylines are horrible, but what I love is like it really reminds me of my old Korea,
Yeah.
uh, like things I used to eat and just I really just kind of crave it. And I've been actually really dying to go back to Korea again.
That
And
was gonna be my next
experience it.
question. If you
Yeah.
recently.
I wasn't able to just because of COVID, and then I really want to bring my husband and my son there. My son's been there a bunch of times, so he doesn't remember.
Mm.
So I want to take him there. Um, yeah, I mean, I last time I'm back, I went back to my junior high.
Wow.
Yeah, I went to my classroom and it was pretty surreal. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, this is where I used to like, get snacks after school and just the whole memory lane. But like you're right, like I really love uh I have like this Korean pride, I
Yeah.
love that. Even like the World Cup, I was just rooting for Koreans.
Yes, I get it. I
Yeah.
get it. It's like you spend all this time, trying to find your Americanism, and then you realize, wait a second, in my heart of hearts, in my marrow, I was born in this other country, and it's worth attention too, like the
Right.
worth attention. Uh,
Yeah.
very cool. So you plan on taking your son and husband to Korea soon. I plan on taking my husband to Jamaica for the first time so he can
Okay.
some
You
Jamaican.
haven't been?
I mean, like you, I don't get to go back very much, and I hate to say it. People pass away, like relatives, very old ones, and that's when I usually go.
Okay.
So I would like to go for pleasure and just hang out with my family that's there. I still have some.
What part of Jamaica are you from?
So I'm from, well, I was raised in a suburb of Kingston called Bridgeport. So I
Okay.
lived there for some time, but my family is in St. Catherine. I don't know if you know the parishes, but I have a lot of family over there, and they're awesome people. And that's what I miss, like the pace of just being close to people without it having to be like so
Yeah, yeah,
rushed and intense, and you just chill with people for the whole day. I miss that.
yeah.
So where can people find Grace's work? Like what are you working on right now that people can actually see your work?
And my son, I'm kidding. I always say he's my greatest design.
That's true.
Yeah. Currently, I mean, I guess the only work that you can see is actually if you through my photography. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I done some headshots and some lifestyle for friends brands. I done a furniture brand, jewelry brand.
Mhm.
Um, I do a headshots, but it's not like typical headshots like like you cross your arm. So I've been hired a lot by like interior designers or um, the art dealers and things like that because like they want a headshot but it's like they don't want it to be so like formula. So that I think that's Million Graces is my Instagram and that's where all my photography lives.
Oh, really? Okay, I'm gonna stalk you there too. I've only been stalking you on Mama's Oot. I'll
Yeah.
find you there too. So we had touched on in our email exchange that we're having a good time now, but there's some ugly things happening in the Asian community
uh,
still.
yeah.
Um, I think people think that hate against one group is different than hate against another group. I don't understand why people don't get that hate is hate, and directed at any one group. It's a horrible thing. So tell me a little bit more about your experience with that or what you're seeing or hearing.
It's been pretty ugly since the whole COVID started, and I think that, and there's just the whole ignorance about the pandemic that we're having, and also I think it's just the ignorance that's been there for a long time. It just gave a whole new life to it, so they were allowed to come out, and it's
Yeah.
like it's almost like Batman, like all the evils got out.
Yeah.
And they were attacking these I don't even know. I mean, I think that there's New York, just the whole mental state of the city is horrible. Homeless situation is out of control. I think a lot of people who should be getting a lot of help in mental facilities are out
Yes.
in the society.
Yes.
So, and then with this whole like ticket that you get to hate people and punch people or act the way that you need to, it's just kind of like spreading like a wildfire. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's like thousand reasons that why this is all happening, like less police force, but like ignorance to um, the Asian communities and all this stuff. And it's just been ugly. I really worry when my son takes a subway to
Yeah.
come home. Um, I tell him like just be alert, you know, of your surroundings. Just
Yeah.
always travel with, friends.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot of situation, my Asian friends, like in New York and New Jersey, getting attacked. It's
Yeah.
not like it's not somebody like, oh, I heard this thing in the news. I mean, it's literally like, oh, my friend Eddie, like, or like my friend, um, Essen went to Pennsylvania. Who was in like, he's diehard. What is that like? Green Packer. I don't know what are the sports team. He's like a fan of them, and he was getting yelled at. Like it's just and like my friend Heidi, who's walking down the street, and this lady came out of nowhere and was like, you should go back to your country. You know,
Right.
so these issues are really real. Like it's really happening, and we feel like as an Asian community, it's always been kind of pigeonholed to be weak and model minority and all this. And I don't know, honestly, I feel like um, very helpless in the situation. I
Yeah.
think very little is getting done.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think you're right. I remember what New York was like even post 9/11, and how the Middle Eastern community was getting all that vitriol on the trains, on the streets. And now that we're here and it's like a new community, it's not that new. It's been happening for a number of years. It's just like somebody lifted the rug up and all the cockroaches came out and now they all have something to say and
Right,
you're the receptacle for it. So I think it's a like you said, it's a multi-factored problem, but solving it can start with us speaking out and
right,
being more vocal against it, in our groups. We can't, I think, and this kind of brings back to our conversation about assimilation. I think a lot of times, you and I, like you said, we are blessed and we it could have been much worse for us, this process of being in America and acquiring the life that we had, and we can sometimes get insulated, and then when things really start to go down, like, whoa, the
right.
real world is harsh,
Yeah,
so I know I'm at fault for that in some way. So that's kind of the reason like this even exists as a platform, is because like I no longer can sit by and be like, okay, it's happening to other people. It's literally happening to people I know. So
right. Exactly.
yeah.
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 It's just it's kind of like mind-boggling that we're here, you know? I mean, you and I, we've been in this country for a long time, right? And I just feel like this is the crap that you